Okay, so we are now up and live streaming. Let me just mention at the beginning, I'm going to run through a few things beforehand before I turn it over to Judge McCarger. My name is David Aero. I am the host for Courtroom 1, which hopefully that's where everybody meant to be this afternoon. At the outset, I'm going to ask everyone to introduce yourselves by role. And I realize that most of you are doing multiple roles, but the score sheets that the scorers have list each specific role out individually. So I will go through each of the roles one at a time and ask you to put your camera on, unmute yourself, and introduce yourself. And that way they can fill in each specific role. So even though you may do 2-3 roles, when I call that specific one, resist the urge to give all of those roles at once. Just announce yourself for that particular role, and we'll call up your other ones as we go. Before we begin, it looks like most of you have taken the time to do this already. Just a reminder that for your name, you need to have your team name, your actual full name, and if you are a witness, your character name. With that, I will begin by asking whoever is doing prosecution opening to please come online and introduce yourself.
My name is Abriana Gonzalez, and I am on Team Fortnite, and I will be doing the opening.
And I want to, maybe it's my volume, I want to make sure, Judge McCarger, were you able to hear her? No.
No.
Can you hear
Do you
me?
mind reintroducing yourself and maybe moving a little closer to a microphone?
Yes. My name is Abriana Gonzalez. I am on Team Fortnite, and I will be doing the opening.
It was a little louder. I'll just let you know that when you do the presentation, you might want to scoot a bit closer and maybe speak up so that they can hear you. Defense opening.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Winston Thompson, and I will be performing the defense opening.
Thank you. Prosecution counsel number 1.
Hi, my name is Michaela Sanchez-Munguia, and we'll be directing the first witness, Jordan Markowitz.
Thank you. Defense counsel number 1.
I will be performing the direct examination of Avery Becker.
And that's Mr. Thompson.
Yes, you.
Prosecution number 2.
My name is Abriana Gonzalez, and I will be directing Alex and Fuentes.
Thank you. Defense counsel number 2.
My name is Juliet Jensen, and I will be directing Taylor Perkins.
Prosecution counsel number 3.
My name is Andy Craig, and I will be questioning Kyle Kuzak.
Thank you. Defense counsel number 3.
My name is William Chung, and I will be direct examining Blake Van Owen.
Thank you. Prosecution witness number 1.
My name is Gregory Booker, and I'm going to be portraying the part of Jordan Markowitz.
Defense witness number 1.
Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Jensen, and I will be portraying Avery Becker for the Pac-Man team.
Thank you. Prosecution witness number 2.
My name is Callista Cobb, and I'll be portraying Alex Fuentes.
Thank you. Defense witness number 2.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Bella Hoba of the Pac-Man team, and I will be portraying Taylor Perkins this afternoon.
Thank you. Prosecution witness number 3.
My name is Emma Sherman, and I will be portraying Kyle Kuzak.
Thank you. Defense witness number 3.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I am Anna Sophia Hoba of the Pac-Man team, and I will be portraying Blake Van Owen this afternoon.
Thank you. Prosecution closing.
My name is Andy Craig, and I will be doing the closing.
Thank you. Defense closing.
My name is Juliet Jensen, and I will be doing the defense closing.
Thank you. And the prosecution timekeeper, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Tristan Pinninger, and I'm the timekeeper for the Fortnite team.
Thank you. And defense timekeeper, please introduce yourself.
My name is Camille Vaughn, and I'm timekeeping for Pac-Man.
Thank you. As a reminder, only the presenting attorney, so the prosecution and the defense attorney, and any witness, so a maximum of 3 individuals plus the judge, should have their cameras and microphone on. So everyone else, please make sure that your camera remains off and muted. The timekeepers may come on as necessary to alert their team at appropriate times. So that's one of the main reasons to do their introduction. So when you see these pictures flash up on your screen, you know why they're there. If you are not a performing attorney, witness, or timekeeper, based on our numbers, we have the right numbers, so this doesn't sound like it'll be an issue, but if you are not performing in this particular presentation, you must exit now. A failure to do so can cause your team to be sanctioned. You should exit and then use the YouTube live stream to watch at this point. That concludes our beginning part for me. I will turn over the mock trial to Judge McCarger, and mock trial is now in session.
Thank you, Mr. Aro. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ian McCarger. I will be presiding over this round. I wanted to let everyone know that this round may be recorded and that by participating, you are consenting to being recorded and broadcasted. The mock trial competition rules will govern today's proceedings. So if there are any disputes, the disputes will be resolved in accordance with those rules. I will look to lead counsel for each of the teams to represent their teams if there are any disputes. We've already got our rosters in. I think it's time that I swear everyone. Let me go straight to that. So we'll start with team members. If you'll light up your screens and unmute. That is the lawyers. We'll start with the lawyers. And I want you all to raise your right hand and respond affirmatively in response to this. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? And you answer.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
There we go. Good. Thank you. Now for the witnesses. I'd like you to light up your screens, raise your hands, right hands, and respond affirmatively to the following. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
There you go. Thank you. Are there any other gallery members on the call? I don't believe, I think David has sorted that out. So now I'll turn my attention to the scoring panelists. Scoring panelists, light up your screens, unmute, and raise your right hands. I see Ms. Riley, Ms. Cranston, and Mr. Seltzer. Scoring panelists, do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Great. Having dispensed with that, let me close this. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the trial. Let me first ask lead counsel for the prosecution. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, but we would like to ask for some preliminary matters beforehand.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. For the defense, lead counsel, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. All right, preliminary matters. So we're rolling right through this. We'll start with the prosecution. Any preliminary matters you wish me to be aware of?
Yes, we have 3 requests, Your Honor. The prosecution is going to have our co-counsel, Andy Craig, screen share her screen to show opposing counsel, jury, and yourself the exhibits, just as long as you give her permission to do so.
Here's how I want to handle that. During the last round, it felt awkward to display the exhibits before they were admitted. So what I want you to do, and this goes for all of the lawyers and all of the witnesses, is to call the witness's attention to the exhibit, whatever copy the witness might theoretically have on the witness stand. Ask the witness what that exhibit is and lay the foundation, and then make certain, of course, that the other lawyer has a copy. I will then turn to the other lawyer and ask if there is any inquiry or any objection. Once we sort out inquiry and objection, then I will allow the exhibit to be displayed for the benefit of the jury. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves despite the technology we're working. Is that satisfactory to you, Ms. Sanchez?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And Mr. Chung, is that satisfactory to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may remain unmuted for a minute here, Mr. Chung. The second item, Ms. Sanchez.
We would also like to ask that if all of our witnesses could have access to look at their exhibits through either a hard copy or electronically, and it'll only be their exhibits and not their statements from their packet.
That's what I have in mind. That's acceptable. Mr. Chung, I'm sure that's okay with you.
Yes, Your Honor, and we also asked that too.
Okay, thank you. Third item, Ms. Sanchez.
And we finally ask that if the timekeeper on opposing counsel will stop time during video or audio recording presentations in sake of delay or any interruptions that may happen during the Zoom call.
That is totally acceptable. That's a courtroom procedural question for me, and I will authorize that and expect that. Ms. Sanchez, I can't see the next half of your last name.
It's Michaela Sanchez Munguia, but Sanchez is fine as well.
Okay, if you're comfortable with that, I am. All right, Mr. Chung, do you have any preliminary matters for the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, let me make note that there are a handful, a very short page of stipulations that I want to make certain. Ms. Sanchez, do you have a copy of the stipulations that you could display for the benefit of the scoring judges and for my benefit?
Yes, I could pull it up right now if you give me like 1 second really quick.
Okay, let's do that. I mean, that things are stipulated, but I want to make sure everyone acknowledges what it is undisputed. I can almost memorize them. For example, stipulations are not subject to dispute. Makes sense. Authentication is not a legitimate objection. And there are two more, but one of them has to do with an exhibit. So let's look at that one and make sure everybody is aware.
Alrighty, my computer's loading it up. If you give me like 2 seconds, please.
It's okay. We're not.
A member of my co-counsel already has it pulled up.
Okay, whoever's able to get
Defense can do it.
Okay, let's do that then. There we go. Thank you. So chain of custody is not in dispute. Stipulations cannot be contradicted. And Exhibit 22 is an accurate copy of a recording from court proceedings in another matter, one Jonathan Rollins. All right, you may stop screen sharing. And are there any questions, counsel, before we proceed to opening statements?
Nope.
All right, there being none, I will open the floor to the prosecution to deliver its opening statements. I understand that will be Ms. Gonzalez. Ms. Gonzalez, please speak clearly and loudly enough so that I can hear you. Go ahead.
May it please the court, counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Abriana Gonzalez, and I am here on behalf of the people of the state of Colorado, here today bringing charges against Avery Becker. This is the people of the state of Colorado versus Avery Becker. On March 6, 2020, there was a burglary gone bad. The head coach of mock trial Colorado high school team was found murdered in the doorway of his home. Mr. Brackman dedicated his time to helping high schoolers who were interested in mock trials, and in return, he was stabbed in the back, not only figuratively, but literally. After one of his students, Avery Becker, was late for what appeared to be the umpteenth time, is apparently the start of this awful murder. When Mr. Brackman confronted Avery about this, he was infuriated and did harm to Mr. Brackman's car, which was a beautiful 1986 Porsche 911. The defendant vandalized Mr. Brackman's car, and he wrote with the Sharpie, "Worst Attorney Award." After this unfortunate event, Mr. Brackman's car demotion was brought into the mix. You will hear that the defendant was kicked off from the A team to the B team. This is what led to Mr. Becker wanting payback for what he thought was unfair. So he had decided he would vandalize Mr. Brackman's car, but that burglary went bad. While the defendant thought he would be alone in the house, Mr. Brackman was actually home. A struggle ensued when Mr. Brackman confronted the defendant, and that struggle ended with a knife in the back for Mr. Brackman. For this is the burglary gone bad. My team will bring evidence and multiple witnesses to show Avery Becker is guilty. We will do this by showing photos for evidence such as Mr. Brackman lying in his own pool of blood, a bloody kitchen knife, and texts from the defendant to Ms. Cifuentes. In addition, we will have our witnesses, Detective Markowitz, Kyle Kuwas, and Alex Cifuentes. Detective Markowitz is an expert witness and has been a detective for 7 years. He also has specialized training and experience with cell phones. With this specialized training, Detective Markowitz has learned how to use forensic software such as Cellebrite system, how to acquire and interpret cellular records, and how to obtain and interpret cell tower data. He will bring evidence from his training and findings from his investigation on Mr. Brackman's case. He is the one who found cell tower pings that pinpointed Avery Becker's phone in the vicinity of Mr. Brackman's home. There are text records that Avery was going to break into Mr. Brackman's home, which prove Avery was there, even though he claims he wasn't. Alex Cifuentes, a student at Colorado High School. He has been friends with the defendant for a while now. He took mock trial very seriously and prepared for the tournament as much as she could, along with memorizing applicable rules and giving background on the defendant since they have known each other for a while. Now, Ms. Kuwas, an expert witness who is a crime scene reconstruction investigator and has 19 years of experience in complex crime scenes. From Ms. Kuwas, you will hear about evidence from the crime scene and how it was left. Ms. Kuwas approached this case with careful analyzation and thorough steps. Now, I will anticipate that you will hear from Avery Becker, Taylor Perkins, and Blake Van Owen to testify from the proponent side. Though the defendant, Mr. Becker, was unprepared, Ms. Perkins is friends with the defendant, and Mr. Owen is a haughty witness. We have the burden to show that Avery killed Mackenzie Brackman. The burden means that we, the prosecution, must prove to the jury beyond reasonable doubt the existence of all elements necessary to constitute the crime charged. Throughout these testimonies from these witnesses, my team will prove that Avery Becker is guilty for felony murder on Mackenzie Brackman. Not only did he commit felony murder, but he also committed second-degree burglary. At the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Andy Craig, will come before you and review the testimony and evidence you have received in this case. Following that review, we will be asking that you find the defendant guilty for not only felony murder, but second-degree burglary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. For the defense, opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. The facts do not add up. On March 6, 2020, Mackenzie Brackman was found dead in the doorway of his own home. Mackenzie Brackman was the head coach of the Colorado high school mock trial team. He was a well-known and well-respected lawyer. After investigating this murder case, the police concluded that it was Avery Becker, a member of his mock trial team. While Mr. Becker and Mr. Brackman did not have the most stable of a relationship, Avery Becker could not have killed her coach. Becker had a natural talent for mock trial. She could come to practice unprepared and still present flawlessly. Ms. Becker did not have he did not appreciate her natural abilities and constantly told her to be more prepared. Mr. Brackman demoted her down to the B team. Fortunately, Taylor Perkins, Avery Becker's best friend, and also a member of that mock trial team, was able to convince Mr. Brackman to allow her back on the team. Then the team went to the regional competition where Avery Becker won multiple awards. Mackenzie Brackman was still upset that she was never prepared. He told Becker that she did not deserve any of the awards she had won. Naturally, Avery Becker did not respond well to this. She grabbed what she thought was a dry erase marker and wrote on Coach Brackman's car. She did apologize to him very, very many times. Mr. Brackman could not, however, accept her apology. The facts just don't add up. The night before the murder, Avery Becker and Taylor Perkins were at a fry shack with a couple of teammates. They were using Avery Becker's phone. Then Avery Becker lost that phone. Among the group of mock trial students that were at that restaurant was Alex Cifuentes. Alex Cifuentes was and still is very jealous of Avery Becker's natural mock trial abilities. The next day, the day of the murder, Avery Becker and her best friend Taylor Perkins skipped school and went out looking for the phone that she had lost at the fry shack. While the two best friends were out looking for that phone, Mackenzie Brackman was killed. The police investigation began with Detective Jordan Markowitz, who lost evidence, neglected to investigate other suspects, and based his entire theory around the location of a phone that could have been in anybody's possession. Next, Kyle Kuzak. Kyle Kuzak went to the scene and attempted to reconstruct the crime scene using evidence gathered from the police. During this investigation, he took the easy way out. He made a lot of assumptions and failed to analyze all possible evidence. Kyle Kuzak then compiled his findings into a report that was reviewed by Blake Van Owen. Today, you will hear from Avery Becker, who will establish the relationships involved in this case, including that between her and Mr. Brackman. Avery Becker will also provide clarity on her whereabouts the day before as well as the day of the murder. Then you will hear from Taylor Perkins, who will also tell about the relationships on the mock trial team. She will also talk about Alex Cifuentes. Finally, Professor Blake Van Owen will explain the facts of this case that simply don't add up, and he will show that the police took the easy way out. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the facts don't add up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. If the prosecution is ready to call its first witness, I'm open to that. And let's light up your screens, the two lawyers and the witness. I see Ms. Sanchez for the prosecution. And who else do we have? Okay, Mr. Jordan.
Yes, I'll be calling Jordan Markowitz to the scene. I didn't know if opposing counsel knew that. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Butcher, you're serving as Jordan Markowitz?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and Ms. Jensen, you are for the defense, correct?
Yeah.
All right. You may leave your microphone unmuted, Ms. Jensen, in case you need to object. And if you have objections, don't be afraid to raise your hand and speak so that I don't miss you. All right, Ms. Sanchez, you may call the prosecution's first witness.
All right, the prosecution calls Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
Mr. Markowitz, you have been sworn, so I will allow counsel to examine you. Go ahead, Ms. Sanchez.
Please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
And what brings you here today?
I'm here today to testify on behalf of the people of Colorado for the murder of Mr. Mackenzie Brackman.
And what is your current occupation?
I'm a homicide detective with the Denver Police Department.
How long have you been with the Denver Police Department?
I started my career with the Denver Police Department roughly 13 years ago.
And how long have you been a detective for?
I've been a detective for the past 7 years.
Have you ever investigated a homicide before?
I have, yes.
Do you have any specialized training in pertaining cell phones?
I do.
Has that training resulted in you receiving any certifications or a degree?
I can gain access to any cell phone to look through records, and I also work a lot with cell towers.
Perfect. Have you ever received a degree at all?
Yes, I received a certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement for cell phone technology, as well as forensic data recovery.
And what did you have to do in order to receive that certification?
I had to complete a 3-day training course as well as a certification test.
What were you trained to do in that 3-day course of cell phones?
I was trained on the types of cell phone data and records that can be obtained, how to use forensic software data such as the Celebrite system, how to download information from a cell phone, how to acquire and interpret cellular records, and how to obtain and interpret cellular tower data.
Have you personally downloaded contents of a cell phone?
I have, yes.
Can you give an estimate as to how many consultations or analysis you have provided with gaining contents of a cell phone?
Literally hundreds of cell phones.
Have you ever had to use cell tower data?
I have, yes.
How often do you use cell tower data?
I use cell tower data on a regular basis.
At this time, Your Honor, I'm tendering Jordan Markowitz as an expert witness in the field of call detail reports and records, and to also include cell towers and location information, and as a crime scene investigator.
All right, Ms. Jensen, any objection or inquiry to the witness being qualified as an expert?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, the witness will be qualified as an expert to render opinions in the fields of, can you repeat that for me again?
Yes, of course. It was in the field of call detail reports and records, and to also include cell towers and location information, and as a crime scene investigator.
All right, you may proceed.
Alrighty, what was reported on Friday, March 6, 2020?
A motorist reported seeing a person passed out at the residence of 444 South Flower Street.
And was there anyone called out to the scene?
Yes, paramedics were the first to respond, and they called for officers upon finding the victim, who was Mackenzie Brackman, deceased just inside the front door of his residence. After that, uniformed officers secured the scene.
And what brought you, a homicide detective, to the scene?
Well, this was definitely not a death of natural causes or an accident. It was plain murder.
At what time did you respond to the scene?
I responded at approximately 14:20 hours.
When you first arrived to the scene, what did you observe?
I observed Mackenzie Brackman laying face down on his porch. I also observed a knife covered in blood laying next to his lifeless body.
Can you please tell the jurors what the knife looked like?
The knife was made of stainless steel, and it was approximately 26 centimeters long.
Detective, have you reviewed Exhibits 5 and 6 in preparation for trial today?
Yes, I have.
What is Exhibit 5 showing?
Exhibit 5 is a photograph of the knife that was found laying next to the victim's body.
And what is Exhibit 6 showing?
Exhibit 6 is a photograph of the same knife, although it is lined up to a ruler so we can get an idea of how large it is.
Did you personally take these pictures?
No, I did not.
Do these images fairly and accurately depict the knife that was collected in this case?
They do.
At this time, I'd like to move Exhibit 5 and 6 into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Jensen?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 5 and 6 will be admitted and may be published.
In Exhibit 5, is this exactly how you found the knife when you approached the scene?
It is, yes.
Can you describe what the body looked like?
Mackenzie Brackman was laying face down on his porch with a stab wound to his left scapula.
Detective, have you reviewed Exhibits 1 and 3 in preparation for trial?
Yes, I have.
Can you please explain to the jury what these exhibits are?
These exhibits are both photographs of Mackenzie Brackman laying face down, dead, just inside his home.
And do these photographs accurately depict how you found Mackenzie Brackman when you arrived to the scene?
They do, yes.
At this time, I'd like to move Exhibit 1 and 3 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Jensen?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 1 and 3 will be admitted and may be published.
As you can see, these are Exhibits 1 and 3 of Mackenzie Brackman found dead. Did you observe anything else while you were by the body?
Yes, I actually found the Ring doorbell that was positioned by the front door.
Taking a look back at Exhibit 1, Detective, is this the Ring doorbell you are referring to?
Yes, you can actually see it at the top right-hand corner of Exhibit 1.
Do you have previous experience with Ring doorbells?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain what a Ring doorbell does?
A Ring doorbell functions as a normal doorbell does, although it has a camera attached to it that can record a specific field of view.
Is a Ring doorbell motion activated?
Yes, a Ring doorbell can detect motion from up to 5 feet away.
How did you know if the Ring doorbell was working?
I found out it was working when I downloaded some information off of Brackman's phone to obtain his account records and passwords for his Ring account.
Was this the only Ring doorbell in the residence?
It was actually not. After I gained access to his Ring account, there were links to a second doorbell that was positioned by the back door of the residence.
Were you the first one to gain access to these Ring videos?
I was, yes.
Detective, have you reviewed exhibits 12 and 13 in preparation for trial today?
Yes, I have.
Can you explain to the jury what these exhibits are?
Both of these exhibits are videos showing a masked suspect perusing about the home of Mackenzie Brackman.
And do these video copies fairly and accurately depict the Ring doorbell footage from Brackman's phone?
They do, yes.
At this time, I'd like to move exhibit 12 and 13 into evidence.
Ms. Jensen, any objection or inquiry?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 12 and 13 will be admitted and may be published.
I ask at this time that time will be stopped so we can show these video copies to the jury.
That's permitted.
All right. This was exhibit 12, and here you will see exhibit 13. After finding the body in the Ring doorbell, what did you do next, detective?
After I found the body, I walked into the dining room area of the home.
And what did you notice when you went into the dining area?
The dining room area had a few chairs. I also saw that one of the chairs was knocked over, and I observed a broken plate just laying on the floor.
Was there any blood in the house?
Yes, I also saw red liquid splattered on the floor. It was indeed blood.
Are you able to give an expert opinion on whether it was blood or not?
I'm not really an expert in blood splatter, but I have been to many scenes with more than enough homicides to recognize the cast-off marks.
After finding the blood splatter, what did you do next?
While the forensic team was doing their work, I looked throughout the rest of the house.
So based on your observations from this scene and past scenes that you have worked on, detective, what can you hypothesize that happened here?
It is pretty obvious that the victim, Mackenzie Brackman, had caught someone breaking into his home and had likely confronted this intruder with a knife in the kitchen, but the intruder got control of the knife and fatally stabbed Brackman.
After you went through the whole house, detective, did you ever pull data from Brackman's phone?
I did. I downloaded the contents of his cell phone.
And did you find anything on Brackman's phone?
I found a lot of texts and email messages that were related to an activity called mock trial.
How did that data drive your investigation, detective?
It turns out that based from his phone data, he was the coach of mock trial, and it was obvious to me that he spent more time coaching the high school mock trial team than working at his actual job as a lawyer, and this led me to Alex Cifuentes.
Why did it lead you to Alex Cifuentes?
Speculation.
Sorry.
Excuse me, counsel, there's an objection. Ms. Jensen, you have objected on the basis of speculation.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Sanchez, a response to the lack of personal knowledge, I believe, is the phrase in the rules.
Your Honor, this expert has been entered in as an expert witness, and he is able to give his expert opinion as he was the one who went into Brackman's phone and found the contents.
Your Honor, if I may reply.
May?
It is outside of the witness's expertise to talk about whether Mr. Brackman spent more time on mock trial than his job.
I tend to agree. It does go outside of the scope of his expertise. I will sustain the objection. Counsel, you may proceed. The answer is stricken.
All right. Why did it lead you to Alex Cifuentes?
Alex Cifuentes informed me that another student on the team had texted something about a plan to trash Mackenzie Brackman's house.
And what did you do next?
I then decided to immediately contact Avery Becker to arrange for an interrogation to take place.
What happened next with Avery Becker?
I obtained a search warrant for Avery Becker's cell phone and then called Becker's attorney to make arrangements for this search.
What did you find on Avery Becker's phone?
I was told that Avery Becker actually lost their phone on March 5th, 2020 and was no longer in possession of it.
Did you ever gain access to Avery Becker's phone?
Eventually I did. Becker's attorney provided me with the phone number to Avery Becker's phone, so I was able to get a court order to obtain account records from Becker's service provider and the cell tower records for March 6th, 2020.
How did you know which tower the phone connects to?
Normally a cell phone connects to the nearest tower from where it is located.
Was there anything in the cell tower records?
Well, technically, I received what are called call detail records, also known as CDRs.
What do these records show?
These records show that there was another cell phone that was sending several texts and placing several calls to Avery Becker's phone leading up to the time that Mackenzie Brackman was killed.
Who did the other cell phone belong to?
I was able to confirm that the other cell phone belonged to another high school student by the name of Taylor Perkins.
And how are you able to confirm that?
Both calls and text messages were sent from Perkins, but Avery Becker did not respond to them at all.
And what else did Becker's records show?
The records then show that all activity by Becker's phone ceased after 13:20 hours on March 6th, 2020.
Why weren't you able to see any more data on Becker's phone?
You have to understand that if a phone is turned off completely, it stops communicating with the cell towers near it, and there is no further activity on CDRs.
Based on your own expert opinion, Detective, what do you think happened to Avery Becker's phone?
I suspect that the phone was turned off after the murder occurred.
Objection, Your Honor. Outside of the witness's expertise.
Response, Ms. Sanchez.
Your Honor, my witness has been entered in as an expert witness as a crime scene investigator, and he is able to give his own expert opinion since this is a crime scene investigation, since this is a homicide investigation, he is able to give his own expert opinion on it.
Your Honor, if I may reply.
You may.
He has not been entered in as a crime scene reconstructor, which means that he should not be able to tell us what had happened at the scene.
The court finds that the witness did, during his qualification, indicate that he had experience with cellular telephones, both in terms of tower activity and cell phone records. So I will overrule the objection and allow the witness to respond.
Would you like me to re-ask the question, Detective?
Yes, please.
Based on your own expert opinion, what do you think happened to Avery Becker's phone?
It is my suspicion that the phone was turned off after the murder.
Detective, have you reviewed Exhibits 15 in preparation for trial?
Yes, I have.
Can you explain what Exhibit 15 is showing?
This is a diagram that I've put together that summarizes what the call detail records for Becker's phone show.
And does this diagram fairly and accurately show how you first made the diagram?
It does, yes.
At this time, I'd like to move Exhibit 15 into evidence.
Ms. Jensen, any objection or inquiry?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 15 will be admitted and may be published.
Now let's get into what you made, Detective. Can you tell the jury about this diagram?
It shows the location of the cell towers that Becker's phone communicated with on March 6th and the time leading up to the homicide. It also shows the direction of the location of the particular antenna that is being connected to.
Let's start from the very beginning. What are the numbers that are next to the antennas?
Those indicate the times and specific antenna that the phone connected to. You can see that Becker received a text from Perkins at 12:47 p.m. The communication went through cell tower 12273.
And where is the antenna located at?
The first antenna covers Becker's house.
What happens next?
We can see that the next communication from Perkins, which was another text at 12:55, went through cell tower antenna 1191.
And then what does the antenna report show?
We get the next communication, which is an incoming phone call from Perkins again at 13:05.
What antenna did these phone calls and text messages connect to?
These ones went through cell tower 11971, and that is the closest one to Mackenzie Brackman's residence.
And then what does the CDR data show during this?
It indicates that Becker was at home somewhere between 12:45 and 12:50, and then left and drove towards Brackman's house, traveling most likely along Rock Creek Parkway at 12:55 p.m. Then from 1:05 p.m., Becker was at Brackman's house.
Detective, based on your own expert opinion, what happened overall in this investigation?
Based on all the evidence that we have collected, it is absolutely clear to me that Avery Becker went to Mackenzie Brackman's house on Friday, March 6, 2020, with the intent to break in and vandalize the house. Then he realized that Brackman was home. The defendant somehow got a hold of a knife and fatally stabbed Mackenzie Brackman.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Ms. Jensen, do you care to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, you were assigned to investigate Mackenzie Brackman's death.
You are correct, yes.
On March 6, 2020.
Yes, that is when the murder occurred.
And you noticed a Ring camera system.
You are correct, I did.
Facing the back gate and the back door.
You are incorrect. One was placed at the back door, one was placed at the front door.
All right. I'd like to turn your attention to Exhibit 12. Do you remember what happened in this video?
I believe I do, yes.
Or would you like me to play it again?
Would you play it for me once?
Yes, of course. One moment. All right. Here's the video. If it will load. Your Honor, if I may ask co-counsel to play the video since it is not working on mine.
There will be no need. I remember the contents of the video. You don't need to play it again.
All right, thank you. Detective Markowitz, in the video, the intruder shuts the door behind them, correct?
You are correct, yes.
And yet you previously stated that you found the back door open?
I don't believe I did, no.
Detective Markowitz, do you have your witness statement with you?
Yes, I do.
And on lines 32 and 33 of that witness statement, do you not talk about finding the door open?
May I view my witness statement, please? Your Honor, may I view my affidavit?
Let me take that question from your lawyer, Mr. Markowitz. Ms. Sanchez, it appears your client or your witness wants to review a witness statement. Is that acceptable?
Yes, Your Honor.
The witness may examine or be presented the witness statement.
Would you refer back to the lines you stated earlier?
Yes. In lines 32 and 33, you say side gate to the backyard was unlatched. I also found that the back door was open.
You are correct. I must have misspoken.
Detective Markowitz, when you entered the house, you saw Mr. Brackman's body.
You are correct, yes.
In the front hallway.
Near his front door, yes.
And you said that you observed blood spatter near the body.
You are correct, I did, yes.
Your team took photographs.
Yes, they did.
And you don't have those photographs?
Are you speaking of the blood splatter?
Yes.
You are correct.
I'd like to move on. In the course of your investigation, you considered other possible case theories.
Not a lot, no.
But you did consider other possible case theories? Even if not many?
Yes, I did.
And there were possibilities for other suspects?
There could have been possibilities, but I think the most likely perpetrator of this horrific event was Avery Becker.
You considered the assailant could have been a disgruntled former client of Mr. Brackman's?
There was a possibility, yes.
You never spoke with a former client of Mr. Brackman's?
I did not.
Relevance?
Your response, Ms. Jensen, to the relevance objection.
This is relevant to the case because Detective Markowitz should have investigated every possible case theory. Since he admitted that it was a possible case theory that a former client could have committed the crime, this is relevant to the case.
I will find that this does tend to prove something that is material and will overrule the objection. You may proceed.
You never spoke with a former client of Mr. Brackman's?
I did not.
Or any witnesses involved in his previous cases?
You are correct, I did not.
Partners?
I did not.
I'd like to move on. You obtained a warrant to search Avery Becker's phone.
You are correct, yes.
You were told Miss Becker reported her phone lost.
You are correct, yes.
On March 5th, 2020.
That is correct, yes.
You were still able to get account records from cell towers?
CDRs, yes.
The phone was in the vicinity of Mr. Brackman's house?
It was found to be in the vicinity of Mr. Brackman's house, yes, on the night of the murder.
You didn't look at the call or text records for March 4th?
I did not, no.
Or March 5th?
I did not, no.
March 7th?
I did not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Ms. Sanchez, do you have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Jordan Markowitz, you're aware you are under oath today, correct?
I am aware, yes.
And you are supposed to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth today, correct?
You are correct, yes.
Can you remind me how long you've been a detective for?
7 years.
And how long have you been at the Denver Police Department?
I've been with the Denver Police Department for 13 years.
And have you ever investigated homicides?
Many, yes.
Who do you think killed Avery Becker? Mackenzie Brackman.
I think that Avery Becker killed Ms. Mackenzie Brackman.
No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. The witness may step down and we will prepare for the prosecution's second witness. Ms. Gonzalez for the prosecution. Let's light up the screen for the defense and with the witness, please. All right. See the witness. And Mr. Thompson, will the witness please give me your real name just so I'm sure who you are?
My name is Callista Cobb.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Okay, I've got it. Ms. Gonzalez, you may proceed with direct examination.
Please state your name and spell your last for record.
Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
And why are you here today, Alex?
I'm here to testify by being asked by the state of Colorado to testify the motive of Avery Becker.
Where do you go to school?
I'm a senior at Colorado High School, also known as CHS.
Did you participate in any extracurriculars there?
Yes, I participated in mock trial.
And was Avery Becker also part of the mock trial team?
Yes, Avery Becker was the one who introduced me to mock trial.
How long have you known Avery Becker?
I've known Avery Becker since my freshman year.
How would you describe your relationship with you and the defendant?
Avery Becker and I were good friends.
And would you and Avery be at practices together often?
Yes.
So while you were at practice with the defendant, did you see how the defendant would act during these practices?
Yes. He was constantly late, unprepared for practices.
Solely based off of your knowledge and observation, what helpful traits did the defendant have in mock trial?
I will admit that Avery Becker was fairly good at making things up on the fly and improvising.
Did you ever see the defendant and Mr. Brackman interact with one another?
Yes, I did during practices.
Did Mr. Brackman ever notice that the defendant was late?
Yes, he noticed.
Based on your firsthand experience with Mr. Brackman and Avery, how would you describe their relationship?
I think the relationship was not. I'm sorry.
There's an objection based on, excuse me, there's an objection based on what I heard was speculation, lack of personal knowledge. Ms. Gonzalez, your response.
Your Honor, my witness is just giving her personal knowledge, how she saw, and she had a personal relationship with Avery.
I will overrule the objection and find that an adequate foundation has been laid for this witness to offer these opinions and these observations. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Was there ever a point where you saw the relationship take a turn?
Yes, their relationship reached its boiling point when Avery showed up late for practice for the umpteenth time.
Were there any consequences for the defendant being late so often?
Yes, Mr. Brockman demoted Avery to B team rightfully.
Did Mr. Brockman ever say anything about how the defendant was never prepared?
Yes, Mr. Brockman told Avery that this would be considered malpractice in the real world.
What did the defendant do next?
Avery got infuriated and stormed out of the room with a Sharpie in his hand.
How did you know it was a Sharpie?
A Sharpie and a dry erase marker look nothing alike.
What did he do with that Sharpie?
He took the Sharpie and wrote on Mr. Brockman's Porsche.
What happened after this incident?
Mr. Brockman yelled at Avery and kicked him off the team.
Did you hear from
Objection
Avery
lacks
after
personal
this?
knowledge.
Let us lay a little bit better foundation, Ms. Gonzalez, for that last question, and then ask it again.
For the what happened after this incident?
Yes, I think it's a fair question, a fair objection to challenge whether the witness has personal knowledge of what happened next. So perhaps you could break your question down a little bit.
How do you know that Avery had the Sharpie?
Avery stormed out of the room with the Sharpie, and we all followed Mr. Brockman outside when he was yelling at Avery.
So what happened after this incident?
Mr. Brockman was infuriated and he kicked Avery off the team.
Did you hear from Avery after this?
Yes, Avery texted me shortly after asking if I can help him get back on the team.
I would like to now direct our attention to Exhibit 14. Looking at the materials in front of you, can you refer to what is marked as Exhibit 14?
Yes, Exhibit 14 is a text conversation between Avery Becker and I.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of this image?
Yes.
Your Honor, I now ask that this be admitted as evidence.
Mr. Thompson, any objection to Exhibit 14?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 14 will be, excuse me, Exhibit 14 will be admitted and may be published. You may inquire, Ms. Gonzalez.
After this, what happened?
Afterwards, I got contacted by a detective after Mr. Brockman's death.
Did you ever speak to Mr. Brockman about those text messages?
I did speak to Mr. Brockman. He didn't seem to want to budge about letting Avery back on the team. It seemed to be more than just the Porsche incident.
What happened after you told the defendant this?
Avery was infuriated and he said, well, if you're still upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset when he sees what I do to his house.
Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Mr. Thompson, do you care to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. You were in mock trial?
I am in mock trial.
Mr. Brackman's mock trial?
Yes, he was my coach.
And Mr. Becker was also on that mock trial team?
Yes, he was a teammate.
And Avery Becker was a natural at mock trial?
Yes, I said he was fairly good at making things up on the fly and improvising.
And this annoyed you?
It did annoy me.
And you thought that he won awards on good looks alone?
I did.
Not because of any real talent?
No, he didn't put as much effort as I did.
And you were at the Fry Shack the night before the murder?
I was.
And you did talk to Avery Becker at that Fry Shack?
I did.
And you used Avery Becker's phone at that Fry Shack?
Yes, Avery Becker let me play a game on his phone.
This was after Avery Becker allegedly sent you a series of texts?
Yes.
You spoke to a detective regarding the murder of Mrs. Brackman?
I'm sorry, you cut out. Can you repeat?
You spoke to a detective regarding the murder of Mr. Brackman?
Yes, I spoke to a detective regarding Avery's text.
And you provided that detective screenshots, correct?
Yes.
Screenshots of those text messages?
Yes, I offered to bring my phone back in, but detective said screenshots were fine.
So there were screenshots from your phone.
Yes, they're screenshots.
And you didn't show them your actual phone?
No, I offered to bring it back in, but he said screenshots were fine.
And where was your phone? Because where was your phone?
I put my phone on the charger because it was very old, but when it came time to leave, I forgot it on the charger.
So you left your phone at home?
I did.
And you have since disposed of that phone?
Yes, like I said, it was old and it doesn't stay charged very well, so I got a new phone.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Gonzalez, do you care to redirect?
Yes. Were you accused of photoshopping pictures?
I was accused, but I never did it.
Thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
All right, the witness is excused, and we will proceed to the prosecution's third and final witness. Counsel, light up your screens, unmute your mics. I've got Ms. Showerman, who is the witness, I understand. I've got Ms. Craig for the prosecution and Mr. Chung for the defense. Is that right, Mr. Chung?
Yes, Your
You
Honor.
may, there you go. Okay, so counsel, again, if you have objections, be sure you raise your hand and speak so that I can see you. Ms. Craig, your witness, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would request for co-counsel to tell how much time we have left for questioning.
So the
You have
question
6
is-
minutes and 5 seconds.
Thank you. Can you state your name and spell the last for the record?
My name is Kyle Kuzak. Kuzak is spelled Kuzak.
And why are you here today, Ms. Kuzak?
I'm here to testify the evidence of the crime scene where Mackenzie Brackman was killed.
What is your current profession?
I'm currently a working civilian employee of the Denver Police Department, but I have tenure with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed as a crime scene reconstruction investigator.
And can you explain what that is?
So essentially, I investigate complex crime scenes from home invasions, burglary, homicides, and armed robberies.
Do you happen to have any formal schooling?
I do not.
Do you have any certifications?
Yes, I'm certified in crime scene reconstruction.
How many years have you been employed?
I have 19 years of experience as a reconstruction investigator and tenure with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, but I spent the last 3 years of my tenure with the city of Denver.
Have you ever testified as an expert before?
Yes.
And can you explain what crime scene reconstruction is?
Crime scene reconstruction is essentially studying the evidence of the case in order to determine what occurred in the crime and to develop a fact pattern of the case.
Your Honor, under Rule 702, I move Ms. Kyle Kuzak to be tendered as an expert in crime scene reconstruction.
Mr. Chung, any inquiry or objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
The witness has been qualified and will be permitted to render opinions in crime scene reconstruction. You may proceed.
What did you do for this case, Ms. Kuzak?
I visited the scene of the homicide after its original processing and reviewed the police reports, photographs, and ring security camera videos in order to accurately identify a fact pattern of the homicide.
Do you happen to have a specific process for your crime scene reconstruction?
Yes, I use a 5-step process for accurate reconstruction, which includes recognition and documentation, collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, hypothesis and testing, and then finally reconstruction.
How long have you been using this specific 5-step process?
I've been using this process for all the time I've been a crime scene reconstruction investigator on every case I've worked on.
Would you be willing to walk me through a summary of your steps?
Of course. So in step 1, I just tracked and documented all the evidence. And then I grouped my second and third steps together and found relationships between the evidence. And the 4th step, I conducted analysis and developed a hypothesis. And in step 5, I just made a final report.
While you were at the scene of the crime, were any fingerprints or DNA picked up?
No, but that's commonly expected. Contrary to popular belief, DNA and fingerprints are left on every surface, and it's clear in the security videos that the perpetrator was wearing gloves.
Did you happen to notice any blood splatter?
Yes, there's small drops of blood between the kitchen and the front door, as well as blood cast off on the wall and the ceiling near the front door, which indicates the victim was stabbed near the kitchen and made their way to their front door, which is where their body was found.
Now, earlier you mentioned something about security camera footage. Did you see anything else on this footage?
Yeah, so you see the perpetrator going from the front door to the back door, where you can see them enter the home through the back door.
Did you find any marks in the home?
Yes, there are scuff marks found near the back door.
And what is the relevance of these scuff marks?
They indicate a close contact situation between at least two people.
Did you happen to review the coroner's report?
I did.
And what did you find?
Based off the coroner's report, the victim was stabbed once, only because the knife was lodged in the scapula, which would have made it very difficult to remove. And then the victim did bleed out from internal bleeding.
Was there anything out of place inside the home?
In the home, there was a drawer with some small knives inside that was open. There was a missing knife from the knife block, which matched the knife used to kill the victim. And then there was also the scuff marks that I mentioned, as well as a broken dish.
Did you also happen to review the defense expert's Blake Van Owen's report?
Yes, I reviewed his interpretation.
And do you happen to agree with it?
I did not. I honestly found it quite laughable.
What did you disagree with?
Well, first of all, his theory is that the intruder stabbed the victim while the victim was seated, which is unlikely because the Ring app would have alerted the victim of the intruder's presence. Second, the victim would have heard the back door opening and heard the intruder walk across the kitchen to grab the knife. And then Van Owen's theory doesn't explain the scuff marks, the broken dish, the open knife drawer, or the empty knife slot.
So in conclusion, what is your expert conclusion?
I came to the conclusion after following my 5-step process that on the afternoon of March 6, 2020, a perpetrator matching the height and build of the defendant approached the victim's home. They checked the front door as captured by the Ring security cameras and then proceeded to the south side of the home. Another camera picked up the perpetrator proceeding to the backyard, and all of these indicated that there was a planned burglary gone bad. The intruder had knowledge of the home and likely chose a time where the victim wouldn't have been home, but unfortunately they were.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Chung, you may cross-examine.
Permission to proceed, Your Honor.
You may.
You attempted to reconstruct the crime scene for this case.
Yes, I did reconstruct the crime scene.
And for this reconstruction, you attempted to recreate the events.
Yes, I did develop a fact pattern of the case.
And in this attempt, you used evidence collected by other people.
Yes, I'm not a detective, so I'm not the one who collects evidence.
You went to the crime scene only after it was processed.
Yes, like I do with every crime scene for the past 19 years.
And you did not see the collection of evidence.
No, but I double-checked it was all accurate.
You were not able to recreate all of the events.
Not necessarily.
And you were not able to place all of the evidence.
No, unfortunately, I was not.
There was limited physical evidence.
Yes, there was.
And you would have preferred to have more physical evidence.
For every case, you always prefer to have more physical evidence. The more, the better.
And for your reconstruction, you used photographs of blood droplets.
Yes, sir.
And cast off.
Yes.
But these photographs were lost.
After I reviewed them.
Because the files for the photographs were corrupted.
Yes, they were, but that was after I reviewed the photographs originally.
So nobody can view these photographs anymore.
Not anymore.
And we only have testimony that these photographs even existed.
Yes, like I said in my statement, though, I told the truth. I would not lie about evidence.
And also, as a part of your reconstruction, you used scuff marks.
Yes, there were scuff marks found in the kitchen.
And you assume that these scuff marks are a sign of the struggle.
Yes.
But nobody analyzed these scuff marks.
They were not analyzed to my knowledge.
Nobody analyzed the rubber from Mr. Brackman's shoes.
That is correct.
And nobody analyzed the rubber from Avery Becker's shoes.
That is correct.
We do not know whose shoes made these scuff marks.
Not necessarily.
And you used these scuff marks for your conclusion.
I didn't use them to draw a complete conclusion, but scuff marks do generally indicate a close contact, indicating a struggle. But
So
as
you
well,
used, so you used these scuff marks as a part of your conclusion.
yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, Ms. Craig, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Kuzak, would you be able just to give us a summary of your expert conclusion?
Yes, so the intruder entered through the back door. There appeared to be a close contact situation between the scuff marks and the broken dish, and the perpetrator stabbed Brackman in the back, and then Brackman unfortunately bled to death.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. The witness is excused. Does the prosecution rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Assuming the defense is ready to proceed, let's call the first witness for the defense.
The defense calls Avery Becker to the stand.
All right, Mr. Thompson. And for the prosecution, who do we have? All right, Ms. Gonzalez. And the witness, Avery Becker, will you please identify yourself for me?
Yes, my name's Danielle Jensen. And
Jensen.
Yes.
Did you say? Okay, Jensen. Thank you, Ms. Jensen. And Mr. Thompson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your full name and spell your last for the record.
Avery Becker, Becker.
And why are you in court today?
I was wrongly accused of killing Mr. Brackman.
Can you tell the jury about your prior mock trial background?
Yeah, I had been doing mock trial all 4 years at CHS. I was a really good lawyer.
So how did you know Mr. Brackman?
He was our mock trial coach.
And what was your relationship like with Mr. Brackman?
Well, he didn't like me. He claimed that I was lazy and didn't put in the work, but I was the best attorney on the team.
Did you get into an argument with Mr. Brackman after the regional competition?
Yes, I did.
Can you go into the details of that argument?
Yes. He claimed that I only won due to good looks, and it was lucky that I had gotten my awards, and I got really mad.
Did anything happen as a result of that argument?
Well, yes. On the way out, I stopped by the pad we used to write notes on for mock trial, and I grabbed a dry erase marker. I went outside, and there was the Porsche he was so proud of, and I wanted to show him how I really felt. And I made one of the worst decisions I've ever made. I wrote on the hood of his car, Worst Attorney Award.
Did you apologize to Mr. Brackman for this?
Yes, I did, loads of times. I went to his office to talk to him in person, but he wouldn't see me, so eventually I sent a text.
Did you have any friends on the mock trial team?
Yeah, I had friends. One of them was Taylor Perkins.
What was your relationship like with Taylor Perkins?
We were best friends. We actually joined mock trial together so that we could text from across the room.
And was Taylor Perkins in mock trial for the whole year last year?
No.
And why did she quit?
She quit because Mr. Brackman demoted me to the B team, and she knew that if she quit, I would have to be moved back up. She was just being a good friend.
And did you hang out with Taylor Perkins on March 5th, the day before the murder?
Yeah, I did. We went to the mall and to Fry Shack.
And when did you hear about Mr. Brackman's death?
The next day in the late afternoon.
And why did you not know of his death earlier?
I had lost my phone.
And when was the last time you remember having your phone?
The night before March 5th at Fry Shack.
And you spent all day March 6th looking for it?
Yeah, Taylor Perkins and I skipped school and retraced our steps.
Were you here earlier for the testimony of Alex Cifuentes?
I was.
Are you aware that they testified that you sent text to them?
Yes, I am.
Your Honor, I ask your permission for the witness to direct their attention to Exhibit 14.
And Exhibit 14 has already been admitted, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yep. All right, yes, you may.
You have that exhibit in front of you?
Just a moment.
Yes, I do.
And did you send those texts?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. On the day of March 6th, did you go near Mr. Brackman's house?
Well, I didn't know where he lived, so I don't think so.
Did you plan to break into Mr. Brackman's house?
Absolutely not.
Did you break into Mr. Brackman's house?
No.
Did you plan to vandalize Mr. Brackman's house?
No.
Did you vandalize Mr. Brackman's house?
No.
Did you kill Mr. Brackman?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. For the prosecution, cross-examination, Ms. Gonzalez.
You're Avery Becker, correct?
Yes.
And you attended Colorado High School?
Yes.
As a student at Colorado High School, you participated on the mock trial team, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Brackman was the head coach of that team?
Yes.
You and Mr. Brackman didn't get along very well, did you?
No, we didn't.
And you didn't get along very well because Mr. Brackman thought you came unprepared, correct?
Yes.
He was also frustrated with you because you did not show up to time on practice, correct?
Yes.
You believe Mr. Brackman was a joke?
Yes.
Along with a mediocre attorney, correct?
Yes.
And it would upset you when Mr. Brackman would criticize you at practice, right?
Yes, it would.
And you and Mr. Brackman argued at almost every practice, correct?
Yes.
Following one of those arguments, you vandalized Mr. Brackman's car, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you wrote Worst Lawyer Award on his Porsche with a permanent marker, right?
Yes, I did, but I didn't know the marker was permanent at the time.
But it was a permanent marker, right?
Yes.
You were then completely kicked off the team, correct?
Yes.
Did you or did you not also say that you were even madder after being kicked off the team?
I was.
And is it true that you told your mother you would get back at him if it was the last thing you did?
Yes, in the heat of the moment, I did.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, Ms. Gonzalez. Mr. Thompson, do you care to redirect?
Yes, briefly, Your Honor.
Okay, you may.
Thank you. Avery Becker, did you apologize to Mr. Brackman after riding on his car?
Of course. I felt horrible. I should never have done that.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, the witness is excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
defense may call. You're welcome. The defense may call its second witness. Counsel, let's light up the screen. Juliet Jensen. And who else do we have?
The defense would like to call Taylor Perkins to the stand, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jensen. And I see we have Ms. Sanchez for the prosecution. Just for my records, will the witness please give me your real name?
My name is Bella Hoba.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Howell. That's all I needed. Counsel, you may proceed with direct examination of the witness.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the court record.
Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
Are you in school, Miss Perkins?
Yes, I'm currently a freshman at CU Boulder.
And where did you go to school before this?
I went to Colorado High School.
Miss Perkins, do you know Avery Becker?
Yeah, I did. She was my best friend all throughout high school.
Could you describe your friendship for us with Miss Becker?
Yeah, we were really close. We hung out a lot. And we went to mock trial together.
While you were in mock trial with Avery Becker, did you see how Miss Becker interacted with the coach, Mr. Brackman?
Yeah.
Could you describe the relationship for the jury?
I suppose the word I would use is aggressive. They seemed to constantly be arguing and disagreeing, and they didn't seem to like each other at all.
Miss Perkins, were you there when Miss Becker was kicked off of the mock trial team for good?
No, I wasn't.
Were you told what happened by Miss Becker?
Yes, I was.
Could you please describe the situation for the jury?
Well, Miss Becker had just done incredibly well at regionals. She had gotten the Best Attorney Award as well as the Best Closing Argument Award. But Mr. Brackman apparently was saying that she didn't deserve those awards and they were fighting again. And Avery Becker got really upset and stormed out of the room. On the way out, she grabbed a permanent marker, and when she got outside, she wrote on Mr. Brackman's Porsche.
Do you know if Miss Becker tried to apologize?
Yeah, I do. She apologized several times. I was there when she sent out text messages to every member of the team trying to get them to go to Mr. Brackman for her, and she told me that she went to Mr. Brackman's office to talk to him several times.
Miss Perkins, I would like to ask you about some other members of the mock trial team. Were you familiar with Alex Cifuentes?
Yeah, he was on the mock trial team and we went to school together, though I can't say that we were friends and we didn't really know each other that well.
Did Miss Becker know Alex Cifuentes well?
No, her relationship with him was similar to mine, with the addition that they were also kind of rivals in mock trial.
Objection, speculation.
Ms. Jensen, in response to the objection, which appears to be lack of personal knowledge.
Your Honor, Taylor Perkins does know, as she spends much time with Avery Becker.
I will overrule the objection and find an adequate foundation has been laid for that testimony.
Miss Perkins, did you and Miss Becker talk about whether she asked Mr. Cifuentes for help getting back on the team?
Yeah, she said that she asked every member of the mock trial team, so that included Alex Cifuentes.
And were you told if Alex Cifuentes did help her?
I gather he did not.
After Miss Becker's last attempt to get back on the mock trial team, do you know where she went?
Yeah, she had just been to Mr. Brackman's office to apologize. He told her to leave. So she came over to my house and I was there to comfort her.
After spending some time at your house, where did you go?
The two of us went to hang out at the mall as well as at the Fry Shack.
Was there anyone else there that you knew?
Yeah, the Fry Shack is a popular hangout for mock trial students, so there were a couple there.
Did you talk to anyone specific?
Alex Cifuentes, I think.
What did Miss Becker do after a conversation with Alex Cifuentes?
She got upset and went off to the bathroom.
And did you go and find her afterwards?
No, she came back to the table and the two of us left.
Could you and Miss Becker find the phone after leaving Fry Shack?
No, we couldn't. We realized it was missing the following morning because I sometimes carpool with her, so I was sending some texts and she didn't respond at all, which was very odd for her.
How long did you and Miss Becker look for Miss Becker's phone?
We skipped school and we looked for it all day.
Miss Perkins, one more question. Do you know where Mr. Brackman lives?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Jensen. Ms. Sanchez, do you care to cross-examine?
Yes. Excuse me. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Is it true that you and Avery Becker were friends on the mock trial team?
Yeah, we were best friends.
And isn't it true you thought Mackenzie Brackman was a mediocre coach?
Yeah.
And you also believe that he was even more of a mediocre lawyer, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that Avery Becker and Mackenzie Brackman didn't have the best relationship based on your observations?
That's true.
During mock trial practices, Avery Becker showed up late to multiple practices, correct?
Multiple, though I can't say she made it a common occurrence.
In addition to being late, Avery Becker was almost never prepared, correct?
I certainly wouldn't say almost never. I would admit that sometimes she arrived at practice unprepared, though I wouldn't say often, and I certainly wouldn't say almost ever.
But she was unprepared, correct?
A few times.
And isn't it true that just based off your observations that Mackenzie Brackman would get upset during practice due to this?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that Avery Becker began to play pranks on Mr. Brackman?
She played a few pranks, yeah.
You guys had a regional tournament last year for mock trial. Isn't it true that Avery Becker was not prepared for this tournament?
I don't know how prepared she was. She did absolutely fabulously.
You wrote an affidavit, correct? Before coming here?
I wrote a witness statement, yes.
Yeah. My apologies. Your witness statement? And do you remember making this witness statement?
Yes.
And was everything true and accurate?
Yeah.
Do you have your witness statement in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
All right. If you could give me 2 seconds. On line 20, on the first page of your witness statement, you state, about a month before the regional tournament, Avery came to practice the most unprepared that I have ever seen, correct?
Yes, I did, but that's a statement about her coming to practice unprepared. She was not unprepared for the regional tournament, which was what the question you asked me was.
My apologies. Since Avery Becker was unprepared for this, Mackenzie Brackman was upset, correct? Just based off your observations?
If you're talking about the practice, yes.
All right, and isn't it true that Avery Becker got knocked down to mock trials B team?
Yeah.
But it's also true that a week before regionals, you personally decided that you would step down from your position on A team?
That's true, yes.
Is it true?
I only joined to hang out with Avery, and as such, I thought Miss Becker deserved to be on the team more than I did, so I just decided to step down.
All right. Is it true that Avery Becker vandalized Mr. Brackman's car?
That's true, yeah.
Is it true that after this incident, Avery Becker was kicked off the team?
Yeah.
So on a Thursday after school, isn't it true that you and Avery Becker went to the Fry Shack?
That's true.
You observed Alex Fuentes and Avery Becker talk that evening at the Fry Shack, didn't you?
Yeah.
When you and Avery Becker decided to leave, you did not personally see the defendant leave their phone, correct?
No.
And you didn't know that the phone was missing till the next day, correct?
That's true, yeah.
And it was Avery Becker who told you that they lost their phone, correct?
Yeah.
All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. For the defense, any follow-up?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Perkins, did Miss Becker do well in mock trial?
Certainly, she was a natural.
And Miss Perkins, why did you quit mock trial?
Because I joined mock trial to hang out with Miss Becker, and because she was down on the B team, I couldn't anymore. And besides, I don't want to be a lawyer, and I mean, she enjoyed it more than me. It was a bigger part of her life, so I stepped away so that she could do it.
And Miss Perkins, after Miss Becker had vandalized Mr. Brackman's car, did she try to apologize?
Yes, several times.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. The witness will be excused. We're now proceeding to the defense's third and final witness. So
Defense calls Professor Blake Van O into the stand.
All right. And for the prosecution, we have Ms. Craig, and the witness. Can you identify yourself for me, please?
Anna Sophia Hoball.
Thank you. You may proceed, Mr. Chung.
Before I begin, may I request a time check?
Yes, you have 15 minutes and 34 seconds.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Blake Van Owen, Vanowen.
What is your job?
I own and operate my own private investigative service. I lecture at CU Denver and occasionally serve as an expert witness.
What drove you to work as a private investigator?
Well, I've always had a real passion for justice. I've tried to pursue it wherever I can throughout my professional life. First, I tried to pursue it through the police department.
And why don't you work with the police department anymore?
Well, it wasn't fulfilling that need that I have. There was an incident where I inadvertently injured a young woman of color using a completely approved technique, and just became so disillusioned with the practices and the policies of the police department, even though I was exonerated of any wrongdoing. Perhaps because I was exonerated of any wrongdoing.
You mentioned before that you work as a lecturer. How long have you worked as a lecturer?
About 5 years now.
And where did you go to school?
I got my master's through Ashford University's online program in criminal justice.
You also mentioned before that you testify as an expert. How often have you testified as an expert?
About 25 times now. 12 times as an expert in general police practices, 8 times as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, and 5 times in cell tower data analysis.
And can you explain briefly what cell tower data analysis is?
It allows you to ascertain the approximate geographic location of a cell phone, and as well as the time at which someone tried to contact it.
Your Honor, at this time I move to enter Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, police investigation practices, and cell tower data analysis.
Ms. Craig, any objection or inquiry?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
So, Ms. Van Owen, we can agree that you would never exaggerate your credentials, correct?
I would not.
But the truth is that you never went to school specifically for crime scene investigation or cell tower data analysis, correct?
My education in that field came as a result of my experience with the police and as a private investigator.
But you never specifically went to school for either of these things, correct?
I had no formal education in a school setting, but I learned about it through my work, so that was where I received my education in that field.
Ma'am, this is a yes or no question. It's true you never had formal training, correct?
I would argue that that's not true because my training occurred in the process of my job, so while it was not in an educational setting, it was formalized.
So you do admit that you only have a degree in criminal justice, but no other formal degrees?
In fact, I have a bachelor's in English.
Your Honor, I move that this witness not be moved as an expert in crime scene reconstruction or cell tower data analysis.
Mr. Chung, a response?
Your Honor, the prosecution has only showed that the witness has not had any kind of school experience in learning this, but she has sufficient experience as she has been recognized multiple times as an expert in these fields. And I believe that she can be admitted as an expert through her experience alone.
I will overrule the objection for the following reason. Rule 702 refers to scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge through skill, experience, training, or education. And because those are not exclusive or strung together in the conjunctive, I find that a proper foundation has been laid for the witness to offer opinions in crime scene reconstruction, police investigations, and cell tower data. Is that right, Mr. Chung?
Yes, Your Honor.
So we may proceed. The witness may offer opinions in those 3 areas.
How are you involved in this case?
I was hired by the defense to look into the police work.
Are you paid to be here today?
I am, yes.
And can you explain what your billing rates are?
I charge $225 an hour for research and investigation, with an additional $450 an hour for court appearances and deposition.
And can you explain what you reviewed as a part of your investigation?
I reviewed Jordan Markowitz's police report, as well as Kyle Kuzak's crime scene reconstruction, and performed a partial investigation of my own.
And do you disagree with Kyle Kuzak's crime scene reconstruction?
I do. I believe that there are a number of areas in which his conclusions are based on assumption rather than fact.
Can you describe what in particular you disagree with?
Yes. I believe that Mr. Kuzak assigns a certain significance to the scuff marks which were found at the crime scene, which I frankly disagree with, on the basis that scuff marks can neither be dated nor really specifically traced to anything other than whose shoes made them, and even that was not ascertained. So I really doubt that they have any relevance to the case. Furthermore, I disagree with Mr. Kuzak's assumption that Mr. Brackman struggled with his attacker, due to the fact that from the placement of the knife wound, the attacker would have needed a significant height advantage, which, if they'd both been standing, would not have existed, but had Mr. Brackman been sitting, would have been present, and so therefore sitting would have made significantly more sense.
I'd like to move on to the police investigation. Do you disagree with how Jordan Markowitz collected evidence?
I do. I believe that Jordan Markowitz's collection of evidence was insufficient at best.
And can you explain why you believe this?
Well, there are just so many areas that went unexplored. Jordan Markowitz had an almost tunnel vision.
Objection, speculation.
It appears there's an objection based on personal knowledge. Mr. Chung, you have a response to that?
Your Honor, she has already testified that she has read through the police reports, which included Jordan Markowitz's investigation.
I will find that the witness has sufficient personal knowledge based on her qualifications as an expert and based upon Rule 703. But it also appears the witness is offering an opinion as to tunnel vision, and I will allow that as well. The objection is overruled.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, thank you.
Can you explain why you particularly disagree with how Jordan Markowitz collected the evidence?
I feel that Detective Markowitz underutilized especially the Celebrite system, which could have been used to ascertain the veracity of a number of witnesses' statements, including Alex Cifuentes and Taylor Perkins. It would have lent significant credence to Avery Becker's alibi had Detective Markowitz gone to the trouble of downloading the contents of Taylor Perkins' cell phone, as it would have contained the messages which he sent to Avery Becker's phone. With regards to Alex Cifuentes, it would have gone a long way to proving that the screenshots which he sent were, genuine, which, quite frankly, we just don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty here.
Do you disagree with how Jordan Markowitz managed the evidence?
I do. With regards to the corrupted photographs of blood spatter, I understand that there was no intent to mislay them or in any way mismanage them, but frankly, the fact that they didn't make copies, that they didn't plan for every eventuality, was unprofessional, short-sighted.
I'd like to move to the cell tower data. Have you reviewed the call detail records Jordan Markowitz obtained?
I have.
And are call detail records a reliable way of tracking his cell phone?
Not unless you would consider an approximate 6-mile radius particularly accurate. There's no way to know for certain that the phone was in very close proximity to the cell tower, given that the algorithm which pairs phone to tower does so based on availability rather than proximity. Yes, proximity is a factor, but it's not the deciding factor.
And would you say that call detail records are a reliable way of tracking a person?
No, because it only ascertains that a phone was vaguely in the area at the time. It does not say whether the person who owns the phone even had it on them.
And do you think Jordan Markowitz thoroughly collected data from the cell towers?
No, I think that Jordan Markowitz ought to have looked at a lot of the
speculation.
There's an objection to speculation, lack of personal knowledge. Mr. Chung, a response.
Your Honor, this is still within the field of the witness's expertise, so this is still part of their opinion.
I agree. The objection is overruled.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, thank you.
Do you think Jordan Markowitz thoroughly collected data from the cell towers?
I do not. I believe that Jordan Markowitz could have collected a lot more cell tower data records, not rather just this very small snapshot of time. I think that Detective Markowitz ought to have looked at more people's call detail records and in a greater breadth of time.
Is time the only factor you think Jordan Markowitz could have expanded on?
No, I think that it would have also made a lot more sense to look at the call detail records of a lot of other people's phones in the area.
And can you explain why?
Because we don't really know who else was in the area at the time, and it could have opened up a lot of other possible suspects.
And in your expert opinion, what is your conclusion about the police investigation and the crime scene reconstruction?
I think it was largely incomplete, rather mediocre, and rushed, sloppy.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Ms. Craig, do you care to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Van Owen, isn't it true that your current profession is as a personal investigator?
Private investigator, and it's one of several professions which I currently undertake.
Now, isn't it true that you were a cop before this?
I was briefly a police officer, yes.
Only for 9 months, yes?
Yes, I swiftly became disillusioned with the police department's practices.
Now, isn't it true that private investigators have no affiliation or official affiliation with any police department?
We are independent, yes.
Now, isn't it true that you are paid money as being a private investigator?
So are police officers.
Well, isn't it true that you're paid $225 an hour?
Yes, generally.
Now, isn't it true that you've worked at least 100 court cases as an expert, correct?
About 25 as an expert witness, yes.
Sorry, 100, you've testified in 100 court cases.
Yes.
Now, isn't it true that for all of those court cases that you have testified in, whether as an expert or not, you have only testified for the defense?
Yes, you see, the police department and, like, in general, the prosecution, they have their own people in-house who generally handle that sort of thing, so there's really not much call for independent contractors.
Ms. Van Owen, that was a yes or no question. You only testified for the defense, correct?
Yes, because the police have their own people.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Craig. Mr. Chung, do you have any redirect?
Yes, briefly. Why do you only testify for the defense?
Because the police, the prosecution generally have their own people in-house who handle a lot of what I might, in general, handle. So they don't need to hire independent contractors when they can just keep it all in-house. It wouldn't make sense.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. The witness is excused. Does the defense rest at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
That being the case, we'll pause for a moment. I realize I've been rushing from witness to witness and not giving the scoring judges time to catch up, so forgive me for that. So let's pause for a moment, let the scoring judges percolate their score sheets, and then we will proceed to the closing arguments. Okay, I understand that Ms. Craig is going to deliver the prosecution's closing argument. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Here you are. And so let us proceed with that. Ms. Craig, you may deliver your closing.
Your Honor, I would like to request to save any remaining time for a rebuttal.
Granted.
Ladies and
You may
gentlemen of the
proceed.
jury, Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you so much for your time and attention throughout this trial. After hearing all the facts, you are now faced with an important job of deciding whether or not this was in fact a burglary gone bad. You've heard the case and you now know that Avery Becker burgled the home of his mock trial teacher, Mackenzie Brockman. And in the course, Mackenzie Brockman was murdered. You also know that the location of the defendant's cell phone was found at the scene of the crime and that the defendant has stated motive. The facts of this case are simple to see. This is a vindictive student who went to the house of her mock trial teacher to burglarize the house and ended up with a dead body. Burglary gone bad. The burden of proof falls upon the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that all elements necessary to constitute the crime are charged. And today, ladies and gentlemen, the prosecution has done just that. Murder in the first degree and second degree burglary of a dwelling. Second degree burglary is defined as a person who enters unlawfully or remains unlawfully in or upon premises when the person is not licensed, invited, or otherwise privileged to do so. The felony murder charged is defined as committing or attempting to commit a second degree burglary, and during that time, a death had occurred. Avery Becker did enter the premises of the now deceased Mackenzie Brockman without any invitation, and while doing so, committed a murder. Avery Becker wrecked the house like they wrecked the car, without hesitation. Today, the prosecution had called 3 witnesses to the stand. First up, we had Detective Jordan, who was admitted as an expert witness in the field of crime scene investigation, reconstruction, and cell phone reconstruction. He had been a detective for 7 years and provided you with information relating to his forensic examination of the defendant's cell phone. What we know from his testimony is that the defendant's phone was found in the home of Mackenzie Brockman at the time of the murder. Now, you heard testimony during the defense's cross-examination that the forensic information only shows where the phone is, not who has it. But ask yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, what teenager is ever without their phone? What teenager lacks the knowledge of where their phone is every second of the day? Next, you heard from Alex Cifuentes. While Ms. Cifuentes and the defendant may not have been the best of friends, she had several experiences with the defendant while they were both on the mock trial team. All of this experience with the defendant and the victim has shown to you all today that the defendant has had some serious motive and ultimately the intent to cause harm. Finally, our expert witness, Ms. Kyle Kuzak. Her expert testimony showed without a doubt that there was a burglary gone bad. Her examination of the crime scene demonstrated that this burglary had tragically turned into a felony murder. While Ms. Kuzak was unable to specifically place Avery Becker at the location that night, that was also not her job. Our expert's job was to examine the crime scene, which she did so, and after doing so, came to her final expert conclusion. There was a murder at the same time as a burglary. While our witnesses were not perfect, but let's admit it, who is? 2 of them were shown to be experts, and the other had a personal relationship with the defendant and the victim. Now, let's examine the defendant's witnesses and the bias found throughout all of the witnesses. The defendant has stated multiple times that they did not like the victim and had intended to do something about it. That made me even madder is a direct quote from the defendant themselves, which in itself shows motive. The defendant has shown anger towards the victim already when they vandalized their coach's pride and joy, their Porsche, with a Sharpie. The burden of proof falls upon the prosecution today. And with the testimony presented, the prosecution was able to push past this burden without a reasonable doubt. My teammates and I stand in front of you and ask you to find the defendant, Avery Becker, guilty of not only murder in the first degree, but also burglary of a dwelling in the second degree, a burglary gone bad.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Let's check the time remaining.
You have 44 seconds.
Okay, we'll set that aside for now. For the defense, I have Ms. Jensen delivering the closing.
Yes,
There
Your
you
Honor.
are. You may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Avery Becker is not guilty of murder. She is not guilty of second-degree burglary. She is not guilty of criminal mischief. The prosecution had the burden of proof. The prosecution needed to prove to you beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that Avery Becker committed all three of the previously stated crimes. They have failed to do this. The prosecution's facts do not add up because they took the easy way out. Jury Instruction 7 states that in order for you to find Avery Becker guilty of murder in the first degree or felony murder, she must have gotten someone killed while in the midst of committing second-degree burglary. Jury Instruction 8 states that in order for you to find Avery Becker guilty of second-degree burglary, she must have knowingly and unlawfully entered a dwelling with the intent to commit criminal mischief. Jury Instruction 9 states that in order for you to find Avery Becker guilty of criminal mischief, she must have knowingly damaged another person's property. The prosecution has failed to prove any of these three things. Recall that their own witnesses provided reasonable doubt for their own case. Detective Markowitz himself admitted that he had lost evidence with his team, admitted that he failed to interview any witnesses of Mr. Brackman's or any partners, and admitted that he failed to remember everything in that evidence he had seen quite correctly. Detective Markowitz admitted that he was unsure of his case. He was unsure. That is reasonable doubt. Detective Markowitz also based his expert opinion on the fact that Avery Becker's phone connected to a tower near Mr. Brackman's house, when, in fact, he failed to prove that Avery Becker had her phone with her. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that is reasonable doubt. Recall Kyle Cusack's testimony. She insisted that there was a scuffle in the house due to scuff marks on the floor, which she failed to have analyzed, a broken plate on the floor, and a knife block missing a knife and an open knife drawer. Ladies and gentlemen, how do we know when the scuff marks were created? How do we know when that plate was broken? How do we know that the knife used to stab Mr. Brackman came from the knife block or the knife drawer? They based their case on guesswork. They took the easy way out. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, recall Blake Van Owen's testimony. Blake Van Owen testified that Kyle Cusack failed to provide backing for her construction of the crime scene. She did not provide any evidence that Avery Becker was there. She herself admitted that she failed to find any DNA or any fingerprints. She failed to prove that Avery Becker had done anything wrong. Blake Van Owen also testified that Detective Markowitz used phone records that were not nearly as accurate as he made it seem, meaning that a phone 6 miles away from a house could connect to Mr. Brackman's phone tower. That, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is reasonable doubt. Avery Becker herself testified that she does not know where Mr. Brackman lives. She testified that she did not send those texts to Alex Cifuentes. Even if Avery Becker had been devastated that she was not able to get back on the mock trial team, she could not go to Mr. Brackman's house to vandalize it. Taylor Perkins herself said that she was with Avery Becker on March 5th, 2020 and on March 6th, 2020. They went to the fry shack together on March 5th, 2020, and after an uncomfortable conversation with Alex Cifuentes, they left. The next morning, March 6th, 2020, the day that Mr. Brackman was murdered, Miss Becker and Miss Perkins could not find the phone that Detective Markowitz used to place Avery Becker at the crime scene. Where was the phone, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Where was the phone that Detective Markowitz used to place my client at the crime scene? Alex Cifuentes herself told us that she was in possession of the phone at one time the night before. She did not say that she gave it back. The prosecution proved that there was a burglary gone bad, but that was all that they had proved. They did not prove that Avery Becker was the one who committed that burglary. Avery Becker is not guilty of murder in the first degree, she is not guilty of second-degree burglary, and she is not guilty of criminal mischief. Avery Becker has done nothing wrong, and you must find her not guilty.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Let's turn back to Ms. Craig. You have 44 seconds in rebuttal.
In order for you to believe that the defendant did not have her phone that day, you have to believe that some other criminal mastermind took the phone from the defendant, somehow knew that the defendant was going to be skipping school that day, and specifically planned to commit a murder on that day. That is not a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. We have shown motive not only from the witnesses the prosecution has called to the stand, but also from the defendant themselves, from their own prior statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. The case now stands submitted. We will pause for a moment while the scoring judges tally up their scores and finish their score sheets. Let's give them a second. While they're doing that, I need to go to my little roster of reactions and do this because I think you have done an excellent job. This was a good round, obviously well coached and well prepared. So we'll just pause for a second and then we'll let the scoring judges give you a little bit of information. I see Mr. Aero has lighted up his screen, so let's hear from him. David.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide two quick announcements. One, I apologize to the scorers. I've said this to you 4 times now, but just a reminder, if you would hit the submit button on your score sheet, otherwise we do not receive them. We greatly appreciate it. Further, for all the students and for scorers and Judge McCarger, if you would like, award announcements will be at 5:30. There is a Zoom link that has been forwarded to the coaches, and the coaches are being responsible for getting those out to team members and family, friends, anyone that wants to join to hear the announcements. It will be slightly different in that these will just be announcements of the awards because of the setup with Zoom. We won't have the ability to have individuals come up and obviously receive anything or make any statements, but we do want to acknowledge everyone and let everybody know the results. And that's at 5:30. Thank you, Judge.
All right, I see Ms. Riley has lit up her screen, so we'll start with you.